Welcome to J.R. Hendrick Texan Consort, a podcast that deals with the early life of yours truly. And now, narrating the story, Jimmy. "2:45 a.m. Jim wakes up after a wonderful party the night before with Claude and Becky and Cousin Joe and his friends, hungover. He makes himself a pot of black coffee and begins lighting cigarettes, smoking like a chimney. He turns on CNN News and CBNC, the two networks he trusts. But once again, they are inundated with documentaries and infomercials. So he turns it off to listen to some classical music. 3 a.m. In the hotel, Jim makes one more attempt to watch the two news networks he trusts. One problem, though. They were inundated with infomercials. So with that, he packs his bags and gets all psyched up for a 6:30 a.m. departure for Washington, D.C. At the same time, JR is showering in his bathroom. He made up some khakis and polos to wear today to the airport. But Adam Plummer told him, most likely, that when he arrived in Washington, D.C., he would be interviewed by the press. So, for JR, he selected a dark blue suede jacket, blue shirt, and red tie. This would put him in good stead for his interview. 5:35 a.m. Jim and Cousin Joe get into the white Chrysler van to drive to the airport. Jim leaves instructions for Darren to pick up the vehicle and have it back at the ranch no later than 7 a.m. tomorrow morning. "5:35 a.m. Brad and Karen show up to meet JR outside the ranch. "I still don't understand why he's doing this," Karen said. "Look, no offense, but JR needs to grow up. He needs to be more mature than his brother Kyle, and hopefully less ruthless than his father." 6:10 a.m. Karen is trying to carry about JR's luggage when Frank, the pilot, stops her. "I'll take it from here," Frank said. "Boy, have I taught you nothing. No woman carries man's luggage," Jim said. "Come on, let's go." Seeing his father at the top of the platform, he climbs onto the platform and into the plane. It was obvious his father was sitting with Andrew House, and his cousin Joe was sitting with aspiring model Brittany Britton. 6:30 a.m. The plane departed from Midland International Airport, carrying 6 passengers: Jim and Andrew House, Cousin Joe and Brittany Britton, JR and his sister, Christine, who had flown in earlier that morning to be with her dad. 7:10 a.m. The plane that Betsy is in departs from Baton Rouge International Airport, also carrying 6 passengers. Betsy, Amy Kathleen, forever. Bobby, and Mike Thomas, along with a servant. Everyone was getting ready to settle down for a good summer in Washington, D.C. "10 a.m. Arriving in Baltimore, Washington, D.C. International Airport, JR is escorted with his father into a press briefing room of the hotel, where JR answers 4 questions. JR is mesmerized by the flashing of the cameras. He answers them. Multiple questions had to deal with his internship and his relationship with his father. Finally, a worker cuts him off. JR, come on. Your father wants you at the car. Bobby will sweep your luggage through. Let's go." JR and Cousin Joe are swept through the airport lobby and into Jim's 1994 Chrysler vehicle to go to the Hendrick mansion in Chevy Chase, Potomac. 12 p.m. JR is escorted to a set of rooms at the southeast end of the first floor of the mansion. "This is your suite," Bethany Horowitz, his mother's secretary, said. "You'll be sharing it with your Cousin Joe." Meanwhile, Cousin Joe was on the phone with a girlfriend that he knew in Lubbock. "Look, I promise you, I'll call you as soon as I get back home." Joe hangs up the phone. "Stupid cow. She thinks I'm going to be hanging around? No, I'm going to find somebody in D.C. Someone who has a hots for me." 2 p.m. In the main mansion reception room, Amy, Kathleen, and Forever greet JR. "Junior, it is so good to see you," Amy Kathleen said, hugging her cousin. "I'm going with Aunt Betsy and Elizabeth Marie tonight to White Castle. They're having a debutante party at the home of Constantine Bush. She's going to find a boy," Forever said. "I already have one back home." "Perfect," JR said. 6 p.m. With Cousin Joe willing to eat soup with the intern peons, JR is escorted upstairs to be with his father, mother, and Blake Carter. "So you're the junior I keep hearing about," Blake said. "Your dad has told me so much about you." "Has he?" JR said. "Well, of course." Betsy cut in. "Son, I made a fish fry for you. I caught a bunch of crappie on the 31st when I was on the Mississippi River. We freeze them and we brought them for you and the rest of us to enjoy." "Awesome," JR said. 6:35 a.m. Betsy, Elizabeth Marie, and Amy Kathleen are in Betsy's new 1994 BMW minibus driving to White Castle in Great Falls, Washington, D.C., where Constantine Bush would hold a special party. At the same time, JR and the rest of the interns are in the downstairs amphitheater of the Hendrick mansion. There, JR's father would hand down the rules all the interns would have to abide by while living under his roof. I hope you enjoy listening to J.R. Hendrick Texan Consort. If you like what you hear, please subscribe, become a part of the adventure. This is J.R. Hendrick saying until next time, take care and get ready for the rest of the story. Guys, it gets a lot more interesting from here.